Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Recruitment Uncensored with me, Kate. You all know me by now. So, if you are at the Recruitment Expo today, you're probably wondering how the hell I'm at home managing to do the show when I'm actually in Birmingham. So, disclaimer, this is my first non-live show. I've pre-recorded this because obviously I couldn't do it at the Expo. But I just want to put you all at ease. This is not going to be edited. You'll probably realise that as we get started. This is going to be I've treated this as a completely live show. So obviously, if you put comments as we go along, myself and Alex will cover them off as and when we can. It won't be live that we deal with them, but every other part of the show today is as it is live anyway. So I'm going to introduce who I've got on with me today. I've got Alex Dick, who is MD of Alexander Lyon Solutions. And he is, I've got to say, an award winner, an unsung hero, aren't you, Alex?
Apparently so. As of last week, I am an award winner. But yeah, I am the unsung hero on the OnRec Awards, apparently. So yeah,
It.
I've given it pride of place behind my head. So
oh yeah, I can see it framed.
So yeah.
So you know, I think you're my first award winner that I've had on the show. Oh, actually, I don't know that for sure, but you could be.
I think Mike might have something to say about that. I'm sure he's had one or two over the years.
I was just thinking of it. I was just thinking he's going to be fuming. He's going to be livid.
Both of us being like, "Oi, don't say stuff."
I'm an award winner.
Yeah,
yeah. I probably spoke too soon with that. So I've been so excited about, I'm already laughing, about the title of the show and what we're talking about today. So, how not to be a dick to your staff. This is something that I'm really passionate about. I know you are, because we've already had some chats about this, and this is why I got you on, because I think this is a really important topic in the recruitment industry. So let's get started, because I know we can both talk for Britain and there's a lot to cover off in this. So basically, what I thought would be important to ask you first, because I suppose maybe people have got their different definitions, is what are the behaviours of a dick, basically? Just to be completely blunt and out there with it.
My parents named me a dick, so yeah, a dick in the negative sense. I'm assuming I'm a positive in that regard. So it's things like toxic management, micromanaging, just the standard behaviours that a lot of people see in recruitment businesses that are not conducive with people's mental health being positively affected. They're sort of oppressing people's creativity and trying to mold everyone into this little box of this is what you have to be and this is how you have to do it. And like we've discussed it before, those sort of agencies that profess to be or wish to be like a dodgy extra from the Wolf of Wall Street or a knockoff Wolf of Wall Street. And I've even had recently stories from like a member of staff who's joined us recently who was doing really well and was told that the only way she would be doing that because she was a woman was clearly having sex with everyone in her clients and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. And that same business went on to beat the crap out of one of their staff, like actually physically bleeding from the ears and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the extent to which the bad of our industry can be bad. And yeah, I'm a great believer in the biggest asset any recruitment business has is its staff, and if you treat people properly, then you get the best from them, and if you don't, you tend to have massive turnover, people who are effectively quiet quitting. They're there doing the barest minimum to exist rather than actually taking pride in what they do, because the reality is they hate it. And I speak to a lot of recruiters who are in that exact position all the time, and yeah, it's a depressing state of affairs, and I'm sure it's true of many industries.
I literally cannot believe. I remember, but I'm going back like 10 years now, right? So you'd think things have changed, but clearly not. I remember being told, so when I was younger, I had like really short, I was a bit crazy, like my hair was half shaved, it was red, I was like piercings, and I had really short hair. And I remember a director saying to me, "You'll never be successful unless you grow your hair and dye it."
Nice.
Like,
nice.
Really? Does that make any difference to how successful you're going to be? But it starts making you think at that age, like, oh, do I need to look different to be successful in recruitment. It doesn't matter what you look like.
No. Well, half of the time we're spent chatting on the phone, so people don't actually have a clue what we
No one
look like.
sees us anyway.
So yeah, I think it's the sort of perceptions of often a generation of recruiter where you had to be suited and booted, and if you weren't suited and booted, you were not doing your job properly and all of that sort of stuff. Whereas I'm a great believer in judging people on their outputs, not their physical sort of their look or whatever. It's not something that's ever bothered me, and yeah, I think I have seen a lot that a large amount of the recruitment world is still kind of stuck in the dark ages, and it's
Mm.
a shame because there are some really bloody good recruitment businesses out there that are really trying to make a positive change, but equally there's shitloads of recruitment businesses out there that are still stuck in the sort of the ways of 30 plus years ago. And I think over time those will die. I think they won't move with the times. The talented
I
people
hope
will
so.
leave, and yeah, well, I hope so too. I'm hoping most of them will come join me. So yeah, the aim is to try and be a sort of shining light, really. So I think the old school businesses will go by the way of the dodo, and it's happened in many other professions as well, where businesses that don't adapt with the times just lose good people and over time die. Because if you lose all of your rainmakers, you lose your clients. If you lose your clients, it's quite difficult to replace those people, because it's
Mm.
not like you can just chuck someone in to do a role and they'll do it. If the clients are gone, then you're chucking someone in to then build it up from scratch, and that takes time, which of course is notionally damaging to the business and raiding the coffers until they're performing.
And if
So
those
yeah,
managers are already like they were, they don't give it time to let somebody build it back up again. They expect in a month or less that person to be like having a top billing desk, and it's like, but I'm starting from scratch, and
yeah,
they don't
yeah.
get that either.
No, and if you don't want people to start from scratch, don't hire people who are starting from scratch. Like we are a business that hires experienced recruiters who have built a desk, and it's unfair if we then brought people on. And I spoke to somebody yesterday, and he was brought on to build a desk, was told he had 6 months, and then 3 months later he's now got clients and they're starting to work stuff, and the company goes, oh, it's not happening quick enough, we're just going to pull the plug. He's like, hang on a minute, I left a job being told that I had 6 months to do
You're
something, and now
changing the
you're booting me out the
goalposts.
door. Yeah, exactly. And admittedly, that business apparently wasn't performing particularly well, so that may have also had something to do with it. But yeah, I'm a great believer in honesty being one of the core things of not being a dick. Just be honest with people from the get go. If there are bad things about joining you or working with you, if you tell people about it, then they're accepting it before they come in, rather than moving the goalposts, as you said, moving the goalposts later on, and then expecting
Mm.
people to be
Well,
happy
that
about that. People aren't going to be happy about that.
yeah, that brings me on to my next question. Actually, how do you manage people kindly? So we're kind of talking about the opposite now. If you don't want to be a dick and you want to
Yeah.
be nice to your staff and have all the benefits of that, how do you go about doing that?
I think the main thing is treat people the way you would want to be treated. Is if you apply that methodology to most things in life, you don't go far wrong.
Mm.
You can't. The world of sort of micromanaging people into a little box, in my view, stifles creativity and stifles their ability to be great, because people buy from people, especially in our world, we are a people business. And
Yeah,
if you are forcing people to behave in a way that they are not, that's not a path for long-term success. They're not going to build meaningful relationships, and our ability to build meaningful relationships with clients and candidates is our most crucial skill set, because if we're unable to do that, we're never going to be a top performer. And if I look back at the relationships I've done well in, weirdly, they're the ones I invested in, where I was myself, and people started to like me for me,
yeah, same.
and actually it made life easier, because then I could be a sort of bit of a weirdo and deal with things the way I wanted to deal with things,
But it
and
makes you stand
made it
out. We're
easier.
trying to stand out against our competitors, right? There's loads of recruiters around. If you're yourself, surely that is a way for you to kind of stand up from the crowd. Whereas if you're being asked to be a replica of someone else or the whole office, you're not going to be that
No,
different, are
no,
you?
no, and that. sometimes works up to a point, but then you lose that big client, and then you've got all of these drones running out into the market trying to secure things, struggling because they're not being their authentic selves. And I think a lot of businesses forget that humans are humans. They've got shit going on outside of work. Their life can be pretty stressful, and so I've always believed in understanding the whole person and supporting the whole person, because if you're not there for people in the shitty times, then how can you expect them to be with you in the good times? So yeah, I have tried, and in everything I've done, both within my business and the businesses that I've sort of assisted from a sort of helping externally perspective, sort of help them grow or whatever. And that's not just on a recruitment perspective, that sort of consultancy style stuff. It's always the same. Be true to what you are, know your vision, explain it to people, manage with kindness, try and empower people to succeed. Don't micromanage them with a stick the whole time and punish if they don't do certain things. Encourage them, give them a light at the end of the tunnel that makes them work hard towards it, because it's perfectly possible to encourage people into success rather than punish people into success. And so many businesses use KPIs as a stick of, you haven't hit X, rather than it being used as a carrot to an inevitable positive. And look, I'm fairly anti KPIs, but I'm not naive to the fact that there's equally just as strong arguments for them on the other side. I just don't personally want to hire a whole host of people to manage them and monitor them and all of that sort of stuff. So I hire an experienced base of consultants who've been through that and know what it takes to be successful. But then it's my job and the business's job to empower those people then and make them feel heard. And if they've got suggestions on how to change things, listen to those suggestions. And look, we are by no means perfect, but at least we try and learn. At least we try and improve and just treat people properly. I think that's a thing that is missed from a lot of managers' skill sets. Is they're told that they've got a goal and everything is towards that goal, but there's not much view over the journey to it, and thinking about how can I get the best out of these people. It's more right, if they do this, this will happen. And sometimes that's the case, but often it's not. And you'll have a huge churn of people that are like, I don't want to work like that, so I'm out. And the more successful people become, the more they turn against it. Because if someone's sat there doing exceptionally well, if they then have someone just telling them what to do every 2 seconds when they're flying, they're going to be sat there going, really? Like, do you really?
And not everyone likes that. Like, I like what you said then about understanding each person that works for you, because people say a lot, treat others how you want to be treated, but actually we need to treat others how they need to be treated as well. And if you understand the person, for some people they might need a bit more direction, so they might need, it's not micromanaging, but a little bit more every day of checking in. Whereas others, if you do that, even if you don't feel like you are micromanaging, they'll see it as that, and like you said, they'll go, because they won't want to be told what, if they're doing well and they're ticking all the boxes. And I was a bit like that, and I was really lucky to go into an agency for the bulk of my career that had so much trust in what we did. We had no KPIs, no targets, right? But we all collectively and individually build a lot of money. We were really, really good recruiters, like all of us. And a lot of them still work for the agency. They're amazing recruiters. No targets, no KPIs.
Yeah.
Because we were just bought into the culture and the mission of what we were doing, and enjoyed what we were doing, and we were trusted.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's the perfect environment. But I am also, again, not naive to the fact that some people need that. So we've had people who've joined us who have really just completely taken their foot off the gas, despite there being sort of massive lights at the end of a tunnel that shows people, if they achieve X, Y, and Z, that they will have unparalleled levels of whatever. We've still had people who are sat there just doing the barest minimum, because actually our environment's a remote working environment. So they're working remotely. They don't feel like they're being watched, and so they just go, "Oh, I'll do the barest minimum and see what happens." And I've had a few people that I've let go over the last couple of years who have openly admitted afterwards that they need an environment where there are KPIs and where they are sort of heavily managed. And so I think it's a personal preference thing, and
Yeah,
that's what I think is so key with being honest with people from the get-go about what you are and what you're not, because so many
because they can
businesses
decide whether it's right for them
yeah,
and for
exactly,
you.
exactly.
Obviously, it's a two-way
Yeah,
street,
no,
isn't it?
and it is a two-way street, isn't it? It's not. It should be both parties assessing whether they're a good fit for each other, not one more than the other. So yeah, I think honesty is the biggest sort of building block of that, and that will
Mm,
carry you through.
yeah, no, I totally agree. So we've touched on micromanaging a little bit with the last two questions, but I want to come back to it because um, I just think it's where it can massively, massively go wrong. So why, to you, is micromanaging a fool's errand?
Um, to me, if I go through the people I speak to, and I'm speaking to probably 10 recruiters a day, something like that. The what I hear time and time again is I'm sick of being treated like a child. So people
Mm,
get to, I think, look, in the early days, you need to encourage people and train people and try and get the best behaviors out of them. And to a degree, there will be an element of more management coming into that to help people learn. So I get that. But a few years down the line, when they're successful and they're doing loads of placements and they're doing really well, concentrating on data that is of no relevance to them is not helpful and just makes them feel like you don't believe in them and you don't feel like they can do a decent job. And an example, I've spoken to people recently who have been making tons of placements but are being berated for not making enough calls or not sending out enough CVs. But they've just got good enough relationships with their clients that they've built over, some of them 10, 15 years, where they know what the client wants. They find that thing. They might send them 2 or 3 CVs. The client will interview them and they'll choose one of them because the
yeah,
recruiter has built that relationship. They know what they want. And
I
they're
used to
sat there
send one
doing,
CV sometimes
oh,
because
exactly. Like,
genuinely, if that was the only person that fit the bill, I'm not going to send another two
no.
just to for numbers.
Yeah, exactly. There's like the most ridiculous story I ever heard was at a big agency, an area manager, a billing area manager was sat there and he wanted to change one of the divisions, and there was a guy within that division who was making loads and loads of calls but never billing, and they couldn't work out why. And then he did a bit of analysis into it, and it turns out that like a client he was going on client visits with and all of this sort of stuff was actually dead. So the client wasn't alive. The business was no longer running. He went and
What?
reported that to the higher ups, who went, yeah, but he's hitting his KPIs, so he's all right. And they wouldn't let him sack him, even though,
What?
yeah, exactly. And we're talking about, this isn't like
But
a
he's
little
he's
business. This
essentially
is one of the
lying
big
about his
businesses.
activity, really.
Yeah, he was lying, and this guy had gone to him saying, "Look, here's proof. This person is literally dead." And they're like, "Yeah,
Deceased.
yeah, yeah, and it's bananas." But
It's
that,
pointless. But this is what bugs me the most, right? When it's like, oh, I'll just like do this amount of calls just to tick a box. I've done that. That's my BD. It's like, but it's literally a waste of your time. Like, you're not going to get any decent outcomes from that. All right, you might be top of the leaderboard for calls today,
yeah,
but what are the outcomes from that? And I would much rather it's quality for me over quantity any day. But that story just sums up the ridiculousness sometimes of, like you say, KPIs can be used in a great way, but how sometimes they're just so stupid.
yeah, and sometimes they make no sense because people are monitoring the wrong thing. Because the only real KPI that matters in my view, in any sales business is the amount of sales that happen. So
Mm.
is the person performing financially or not? And of course there's a pipe that needs to be created to get that. It's unlikely you're going to make placements without interviews, for example, but a good recruiter is going to be fully aware of that. Like, our world is not rocket science. There's a pretty obvious path to making a placement most
Don't
of the
say that,
time.
Alex. I'm a trainer.
Yeah, I
I need
know,
to
but that
tell
doesn't,
people it's
just
really
because it's not
complicated and
rocket
they need
science
people
doesn't
like
mean
me.
it doesn't mean there aren't plenty of people that are doing it wrong. But the fundamentals are fairly simple in nature. Now, there's of course nuance to it, and the difference between being good and bad are huge. But the fundamentals are there, and a fairly sort of new recruiter should be able to pick up the fundamentals fairly quickly. And I genuinely believe that coaching is better than micromanaging. So a lot of
Mm.
businesses will take an approach of micromanaging and use that as I say, the stick, whereas actually having a coach that's tweaking the performance of that person and enriching their skill set will end up with that recruiter being far better than just bullying them into
And
a
it will
into
save
a
you
box.
time, because if you
Yeah,
micromanage, people become reliant on you to problem solve everything. They don't think for themselves. Whereas if you coach, they start to become more independent and trust they do know the answer to things. So it's not always giving people answers and telling them what to do. You will literally have a sea of people, like 4-year-old children, like asking you questions all day, and you won't have time to do anything. So you're actually creating more work for yourself.
yeah, and often the people managing recruitment businesses, as we both know, aren't necessarily the best managers. Often the people that are managing recruitment businesses are actually people who were good billers but had no management experience whatsoever, who then go in because they're the natural person to promote because they're the top biller. And actually, if they learn from the manager above them being a bit useless, that the shit trickles down. You get crap manager teaches the next crap manager to be crap, and it just is a perpetual cycle that typically ends in high staff turnover, low morale, and
I was a
pretty
shit
miserable
manager when I did
incumbents.
it. I thought, oh yeah, I'll do it because it's the next step for me. I'm a high performer in the business, and it'll look good on my CV. I didn't really understand what was fully entailed, and it hit me like a ton of bricks when I had to manage somebody who didn't live near me, never done recruitment before,
Yeah.
and I was different back then. I was your typical, like, I just want to bill and make loads of money, and my work's really important, and yeah, I was awful. I wasn't a
Well,
micromanager, or I hope I
yeah.
wasn't, but I wasn't a good manager by any means.
Well, and I think a lot of businesses don't empower those managers and don't train them to be better. So
Yeah, I
it's
didn't have
not
any
even
training.
necessarily the manager's fault actually if they haven't been given the tools to do their job properly and have kind of been thrust in it more rests with the business in my view
Yeah, I
rather
was
than them.
clueless.
Yeah, blind leading
Clueless.
the blind.
Mm. Well, before I move on to your top tip, I just want to give everybody a rundown of the next episode. I've had to write this down because obviously, remember, this is the 19th of September we're recording this, so it isn't actually in 2 weeks for me, but I'm having to write this down. Right. So the next episode is the 18th of October, exactly the same time, 12:30, always 12:30 that we go live. I've got Vanessa Rath on with me next time. Now I haven't done any episodes yet on sourcing talent, so I'm really looking forward to this one. She is the talent hunter, so we're going to be talking about how to find hard to find talent. I might change that title in the run up because it's a little bit of a mouthful, but we'll go with that for the
Worthy.
moment. Just to make you all really jealous as well, I will be in Greece while I film this episode, and it's my first day of my holiday. So committed to the show, and I'm going to do it anyway. But I am going to be in. It's probably going to be about 22 degrees while it's really crappy weather here. So just wanted to throw that out there. So let's go back to your top tips. We can fit it in. Treat people properly and watch them fly. Talk to me about this.
So as I mentioned earlier, I believe in empowering people. I think the key to having a motivated and successful workforce is both giving people a reason to work hard, but also giving them an environment that empowers them rather than polices them.
Mm,
And I've seen it for myself, not just in my business, but in countless other businesses where people are truly not. Of course, there's always parameters, but people are sort of set free and encouraged to be self-critical and learn from their mistakes, but not penalized for those mistakes, but sort of gone and empowered to make the decisions not to do it again. And so not everything is always a negative. It's like, look, things go wrong in a recruitment process, but what have we learned from that? What lessons can we take from it, and where can we go
yeah.
to stop that happening again? And taking that approach of trying to make baby steps forward all the time with your team and supporting them in that, to me ends up with a very motivated people who are passionate about what they do, passionate about the business they do it in, because they're keen on that, because perhaps they haven't been treated properly before, so they enjoy having that increased freedom. Um, and yeah, you end up with a hugely motivated, happy collection of people who all have a common goal of being the best they can be, not necessarily the best compared to somebody else, but the best recruiter they have the ability to be in their sector. Um, and to me, I've always been one for not comparing myself to other people, but comparing myself to a month ago and setting a goal for what I want to be the month after. Um, and I've always found that that's been sort of a recipe for success, because comparing myself to other people that work in a completely different way in a completely different sector doing a completely different thing isn't that helpful. Like if they're
What do they
placing
say? Comparison is the thief of all joy. Is that the
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. It completely is. And you can only be as good as you can be. But if you're working hard towards it, then that should be commended rather than sort of abused. So yeah, I have always believed that if you treat people properly, they will be happy, and by being happy, they'll be more motivated, less stressed, and will do better by virtue of that. And we've
And they'll
seen that playing
stay.
out. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
as a business owner, if you've got a great person in your team, you want to keep them, and that is simple. That is the way that you keep them.
yeah. Well,
Just
you've got to
treat
give
them
them a reason
well.
to stay. You've got to give them a reason to stay. So you've got to treat them well, and you've got to give them stuff in the future that is worth hanging about for, be it equity, promotion, pay rise, enhanced commission structures, whatever it might be. Give them something to look forward to, so that they're always
Mm,
striving for something, rather than sitting there going, I'm doing really well, but I'm bored. Again, there's countless recruiters out there who are doing exceptionally well and don't hate the environment in which they're in, but they are bored because they've been doing the same thing time and time again for a very long time. And those businesses will end up losing those people because they're naive to the fact that that person's bored and wants to try something new, or wants to have a team
that pretty
around
much
them,
happened to
or
me. That's why
whatever.
I set up my business.
Well, it's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing in ALS. It's I was billing, doing relatively well for a very long period of time, but it was like Groundhog Day. Every day was the same, and and so I wanted to make a change and build a company, and that's what I'm doing now, and hopefully the right way, but time will tell. Time will tell. We'll look back at it and work out
Yeah,
whether that's
and
right or not.
I think as well, if anyone in recruitment thinks about their best years, when you've built like insane amounts or you've just done really well, you also remember, and it's not a byproduct of the success, but it's almost the build up to it. It's because you're happy, you're enjoying coming to work every day, you look forward to it. And I know that's true for me. Like I stayed
Yeah,
at my last agency for a long time, 6.5 years, because I was happy and I was doing well because I was happy.
yeah,
There was lots of things that made me happy. Part of that, of course, was I was doing well, I was getting good commission, but there were other things as well. And the reason why I kept, feeling so committed to what I was doing because I enjoyed it.
yeah,
I loved it.
and the joy of it is I think what people will find, because money comes and money goes. We in recruitment have the ability to earn more than we will ever need. But if you're in a toxic environment, it doesn't matter how much you earn, you're still going to hate it. Whereas if you're in
Yeah.
a positive environment that celebrates success and empowers people, you're likely to stay there for a long time. And it sounds like the agency that you were at did exactly that, and sounds like a sort of poster agency for what others should aim to be.
Mm. Yeah, and I work with a lot of different agencies now, and since I started the business, and I've been really lucky to spend some time in some great agencies that it's just proof that there are a lot of business owners now doing it the right way,
Yeah,
treating their staff really well, lovely cultures. I mean, I don't work with agencies where I feel it doesn't fit my values
yeah.
anyway. Do you know what I mean? But
But you got to stay true to yourself, don't you?
oh yeah, but it's just I'm definitely seeing there is a shift, but like you said at the start, there's still those agencies out there.
Well, it's like an
But look,
oil tanker. There's a shift, but it's very slow. It's very, very, very slow.
but hopefully, we see more of a change now. But
Yeah, no,
look,
definitely.
I'm looking at the time already. We're nearly at half an hour. So thank you so much for coming on as a guest. I've really enjoyed
My
today.
pleasure.
Hope everyone watching has. Any questions you've got for Alex, any comments on today's show, hopefully you've liked it. Chuck it in, you know, anything. If you don't agree with some of the stuff we've said, we're happy to talk about it. Put it in the comments.
Definitely.
We're both going to be at the expo, but we'll be on LinkedIn, so we'll be keeping an eye, and we will come back to you. But Alex, I'm definitely going to get you back on at some point because there's loads of other stuff I want to talk to you about.
No, definitely.
But thank you so much for coming on today.
That's been a pleasure.
No worries. Right, guys, I'll see you in a couple of weeks in Greece. Take care. Bye.
Bye.